In the heart of the first century, nestled amidst the picturesque landscapes of Galilee, lived Simon Peter, a man deeply rooted in tradition, who found his life transformed by an extraordinary calling. As we begin our tale, the camera pans over a vast expanse of water. The sun rises slowly, bathing the world in hues of gold. As he pulls in his nets, his gaze meets that of a man who stands apart from the rest, none other than Jesus. But this isn't just a simple act of obedience. It's a declaration, a bold statement of faith and commitment to a path that's both challenging and unknown. As the winds subside and the waves calm, Peter experiences not just the power of Jesus, but also a profound sense of awe and wonder. Initially, fear flickers across Peter's face, but he takes a step forward, then another, until he's walking on the water, defying the laws of nature. However, doubt creeps in, the wind threatens to pull him back, and he begins to sink. But Jesus, with a voice of urgency, reaches out to him, pulling Peter from the depths of despair and helping him onto the boat. The fiery sunset paints the sky in vibrant colors, symbolizing the transformation taking place within him. The camera focuses on Jesus, his face etched with determination as he prepares for his upcoming trial. The scene is charged with emotion as the high priest's wife, in a dramatic confrontation, accuses Peter of being one of Jesus' disciples. Fear momentarily paralyzes Peter, but it's only a prelude to the torrent of denials that are about to follow. Peter, filled with fervor, impulsively draws his sword, ready to defend his master. The crashing waves serve as a backdrop to his anguish, mirroring the turmoil in his soul. The bright light of dawn illuminates the glistening sea, a stark contrast to the darkness of his actions. With head bowed, he's engulfed in a profound sorrow, the realization of his betrayal and denial hitting him with full force. The camera soars above the bustling streets of Jerusalem, capturing the energy and anticipation in the air. The scene shifts indoors, focusing on the disciples, including a resolute Peter, gathered in prayer. The weight of their mission, spreading the message of Jesus, hangs heavy in the room. Suddenly, the Holy Spirit descends, symbolized by fiery tongues that rest upon each disciple, signifying the empowerment they've received. His voice, though aged, resonates with authority and conviction. Yet his narrative is infused with moments of divine intervention, emphasizing God's presence and protection even in the darkest of times. The Colosseum, a symbol of the Roman Empire's power and cruelty, serves as the backdrop for his final moments. The roar of the crowd, their cheers and jeers, is deafening. Peter, stripped of his dignity, is paraded before them, his face bearing the marks of his suffering. Drawing from his personal experiences, he weaves a tapestry of faith and resilience, reminding his audience of the sacrifices made and the challenges endured in the early days of Christianity. The crux of the scene lies in Peter's unwavering faith, even in the face of excruciating pain and imminent death. When offered a chance to recant his faith and spare his life, he refuses. His response? A resounding declaration of his belief in Jesus Christ. The ensuing crucifixion, depicted in a manner both powerful and respectful, is not a spectacle of suffering but a testament to Peter's commitment to his faith. His humility is evident as he accepts his fate without complaint or fear. Peter's words are not just a recounting of history, but a living testament to the transformative power of faith. But with each denial, his voice becomes weaker, his words more hollow, exposing the turmoil raging within him. His legacy, as one of the most ardent and influential apostles, is cemented, inspiring awe and reverence in all who remember his story. His transformation is evident, his eyes shining with newfound conviction. Peter's words challenge, provoke, and inspire, leaving no room for doubt. The culmination of his speech is a powerful call to action, urging the crowd to repent and be baptized. The response is immediate and overwhelming. 8. Thousands are baptized, united not just in faith, but in a shared commitment to live a life transformed by the teachings of Jesus. He addresses the gathered crowd, his voice ringing with authority. His words flow with passion and conviction as he recounts the life and teachings of Jesus, emphasizing his crucifixion and resurrection. Peter's sermon is a masterful blend of storytelling and theological depth, resonating with the audience and leaving them spellbound. The image is one of utter dejection, a man wrestling with his own humanity in the depths of his despair. His once vibrant spirit now seems diminished, the weight of his actions pressing him down like an anchor. The focus is on Peter, now a seasoned apostle, his face lined with the experiences of a life dedicated to spreading the gospel. Despite his advanced age, he walks with a determined stride, his eyes fixed ahead. He's on his way to a place of worship, ready to share his faith with those who've gathered. The courtyard falls silent, the weight of his betrayal heavy in the air. Peter, overcome with remorse, exits the courtyard, his shoulders slumped, his eyes downcast. The once ardent disciple now walks with a heavy heart, burdened by the knowledge of his own weakness. The rising sun, symbolic of a new day, suggests the possibility of redemption. Peter's journey from ardent disciple to broken betrayer is a testament to the complexities of human nature. His story reminds us of our own fallibility, while also offering a glimpse into the depths of sorrow and the possibility of renewal. His hands, once steady, now tremble, betraying the internal struggle between loyalty and fear. But Jesus, radiating a powerful calm, rebukes Peter, emphasizing the futility of violence in the face of his mission. This moment of confrontation serves as a stark reminder of the different paths Peter and Jesus walk, highlighting Peter's human fallibility and the unique path of sacrifice that Jesus has chosen. As they walk along the shore, the weight of this decision settles upon Peter, a mixture of excitement and trepidation etched on his face. The flickering torchlight dances in Jesus' eyes, reflecting both the pain he's enduring and the unwavering commitment to his divine purpose. In the midst of this turmoil, Peter, overwhelmed by a surge of emotion, acts impulsively, slashing off the ear of the approaching soldier. For a moment, there's stunned silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire. In this moment of their first encounter, there's a profound shift in the air, an unspoken understanding that something extraordinary is about to unfold. Jesus, in a display of his miraculous powers, heals the soldier's ear, emphasizing the futility of violence and underscoring the radical demands of following him. The camera lingers on Peter, his face betraying a mix of fear and denial, as he finds himself among those gathered around a fire. The flames dance and flicker, casting long shadows that play across his tense features. Every word spoken, every question posed adds another layer of pressure to the mounting facade he's hastily constructed. This event becomes a pivotal moment, driving home the importance of faith, obedience, and nonviolent resistance in the face of adversity. Jesus, with his gentle demeanor and words of wisdom, invites Peter to follow him, to leave behind the familiar shores of Galilee and embark on a journey of faith that will forever alter the course of his life. Rugged rocks jut out from the lake and fishermen cast their nets into the deep, hoping for a bountiful catch. Our attention is drawn to one fisherman in particular, Simon Peter, a man of unwavering determination and passion, whose face is weathered by the sun and wind, bearing witness to a life lived on the water. He casts his net with practiced ease, his muscles rippling beneath his tanned skin. His eyes are sharp, reflecting the sparkling waters of the lake, always scanning, always seeking. But fate has a twist in store for Peter. Peter doesn't hesitate. He drops his nets, leaving them in the boat, and turns to follow Jesus. Jesus, ever attuned to Peter's emotions, lays a hand on his shoulder, his touch conveying a sense of calm and reassurance. In that instant, Peter finds strength in his connection with Jesus, and the uncertainty in his eyes gives way to determination. Their journey takes them to the tranquil waters of the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus, with a mere command, stills the storm. Amidst the vastness of the sea, Jesus challenges Peter to step out of the boat and walk towards him. The next scene unfolds in the shadow of impending conflict. The tension builds as the soldiers approach, their presence casting long shadows. Peter's impulsive act, though born out of loyalty, underscores his tendency to act before thinking, a trait that will soon lead him into further trouble. As the narrative shifts, we find ourselves transported to a courtyard bathed in the soft glow of torches. With each passing moment, the weight of his loyalty to Jesus grows heavier, threatening to crack the fragile shell he's built around his identity. As the accusations swirl around him, his voice rings with conviction, asserting his ignorance. Distancing himself from any association with Jesus, suddenly, a rooster's crow pierces the night, serving as a harsh reminder of the consequences of his actions. The final scene in this chapter unfolds with Peter standing on a windswept beach. Tears stream down his face, not just as a display of grief, but as a release of pent-up emotions, a torrent of remorse and regret. Yet amidst the overwhelming sadness, there's a flicker of hope. Now let's fast forward to the momentous occasion of Pentecost. Peter, filled with the Spirit's power, steps forward. As he speaks, the crowd is captivated, their faces reflecting a mixture of awe and skepticism. The scene shifts to a Roman street, alive with activity and echoing with the clamor of daily life. A hush falls over the crowd as Peter begins to speak. He speaks of persecution, imprisonment, and the constant struggle against those who sought to eradicate the burgeoning Christian community. As the story reaches its climax, the narrative shifts to the brutal reality of Peter's martyrdom in Rome. Despite the taunts and jeers hurled his way, stands tall, his gaze fixed ahead, his spirit unbroken. The final moments capture the depth of Peter's devotion. The scene fades, leaving us with the haunting image of Peter crucified upside down, symbolizing not just his physical torment, but his extraordinary courage and devotion. The sun was setting over the Sea of Galilee. The sky blazed orange as it bled into the mountains on the horizon. On the water, 3 men were rowing towards shore. They were fishermen, a father and his 2 sons, Zebedee, John and James. He stood beside Jesus at the Transfiguration. When Moses and Elijah appeared and spoke with his master about things beyond James's understanding, when Jesus was betrayed and arrested, James stayed close, standing before the rulers, speaking boldly and declaring that Jesus was the Christ. Through the clouds, he could see the face of Jesus. He built sandcastles and drew pictures in the sand. He sang songs and made up stories about faraway lands. He didn't know the sky was falling. Above him, birds flew in panicked flocks. On the horizon, ships fled. The sea itself seemed to tremble. But the boy was oblivious, and so the world went on. When he heard James preaching, he became angry and decided to put him to death. As James walked through the palace courtyard, he was surrounded by guards who watched him closely. The air was thick with tension, and James felt the weight of their stares on his back. But he didn't waver. He walked with his head held high, his eyes fixed ahead. He didn't notice the growing darkness as night fell. "So you are a Christian," Herod said, his voice dripping with disdain. James didn't hesitate. "I am a follower of Jesus." All eyes turned to see Jesus standing at the entrance of the courtyard. His eyes were filled with power and authority, and his presence commanded respect. "Let him go," Jesus said, his voice echoing in the courtyard. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." The guard dropped his sword, his knees buckling beneath him. Other guards rushed forward, but Jesus waved his hand and they froze in place. The wind whipped around him, carrying the scent of rain and thunder. "Who are you?" he stammered, his voice lacking its usual confidence. "I am Jesus," he replied, stepping forward. "And you have something that belongs to me." Despite the turbulent weather, James remained resolute. He knew what was coming, but he wasn't afraid. He would die for his faith, for his belief in Jesus. James looked up at him, meeting his gaze steadily. The guard hesitated, his hand trembling slightly, then brought the sword down. James closed his eyes, waiting for the end, but it never came. He opened his eyes to see the guard's sword hovering above him. The man's face was contorted with fear and uncertainty. Herod's smile widened. "Then you will pay the price." People whispered and pointed, their faces a mix of curiosity and fear. James ignored them, focusing instead on the task ahead. He had to be strong, not just for himself, but for all the Christians watching. Before James could react, guards grabbed him and pulled him toward the exit. The guards pushed James toward it and motioned for him to climb it. He hesitated for a moment, then began to ascend. As he reached the top, the guards tightened the rope, securing it around his neck. James struggled to breathe as the rope dug into his skin. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a strangled cry. James struggled against their grip, but their hold was too tight. He didn't feel the cold wind blow across the shore, didn't hear the distant thunder rumble in the sky. He kept building his castles and drawing his pictures until finally, A hand touched his shoulder. He turned and looked up. Then James turned back to face the guards, closed his eyes, and waited for the sword. After Jesus' death, the Holy Spirit came upon James and the other disciples as they gathered in Jerusalem. Filled with the Holy Spirit, James preached with fire, casting out demons and healing the sick. Thousands believed and joined the church. He wore flowing robes that billowed in the wind. He had a gentle smile and eyes that shone like stars. The man reached out and helped the boy build his castle. Together they made it taller and stronger than any he had built before. They decorated it with shells and seaweed, and the boy felt proud. Finally, when the castle was finished, the man said, "It's beautiful. You've done well." And the boy beamed. But then the man's face suddenly changed. His smile vanished, his eyes flashed, and the boy felt fear grip his heart. "Who are you?" he cried, backing away. "Why are you here?" But the man only stared back with an expressionless face. Then he raised his hand and the boy screamed as a bolt of lightning struck him down. Persecution soon followed, and James was forced to flee to Arabia. Like his brother John, he came from a family of fishermen, but unlike his brother, James was bold and courageous. He was not afraid to speak up or stand up for what he believed in, even in the face of danger. At the Transfiguration, he and Peter wanted to stay on the mountain with Jesus, and he stood up to the rulers, declaring Jesus' divinity. However, this boldness led to his downfall. While preaching in Jerusalem, he incurred the wrath of King Herod, who had James arrested and brought before him. There he preached to the people until he heard the gospel had reached Jerusalem. Returning home, James found the church thriving and rejoiced. His heart swelled with pride. This was the fruit of his labor, all because he left his nets and followed Jesus. The day had been hard, but there wasn't much time to rest. He walked through the courtyard and stood before Herod. "You are a Christian," the king said accusingly. James didn't deny it. "I am a follower of Jesus, and you will pay the price," Herod said. As the king's guards approached, James continued to walk forward. He knew what was coming, but he wasn't afraid. If he had known he would have to die for Jesus, he would have gladly given up everything twice, thrice, even his life. In his mind, it was worth it all because he was following Jesus. With the coming darkness, they would have to unload their nets and prepare for another day on the water. As they neared the shore, they saw a man standing on the beach. It was Jesus of Nazareth, one of their former disciples. The last time they had seen him, he had been arrested, beaten, and crucified. But now he was alive and well, and the sight gave James great joy. The three men landed their boat and approached Jesus. "We're going out again," said James's father, "but we'll come back and see you." "No," Jesus told them, "follow me and fish for people." And so that very day, James and his brother left everything to follow Jesus. They did not look back. Years passed. James traveled with Jesus and witnessed miracles and teachings that changed the world. But peace did not last long. A new king, Herod, came to power and hated the followers of Jesus. One day, James was summoned to the palace. Now the guards dragged James outside. The sun beat down on him. He looked up at the sky. A young boy sat alone on the beach. The waves crashed around him, and he laughed as the water tickled his feet. Standing before him was a tall, handsome man with a kind face. James the Greater was one of the first disciples Jesus called, one of the inner circle who witnessed the miracles and teachings of Jesus firsthand. Herod Agrippa I was a cruel and ruthless ruler who persecuted Christians. Suddenly Herod appeared, standing in front of James with a cruel smile on his face. As they dragged him outside, James looked up to see the sky overcast and stormy. The guards took James to the courtyard where a crowd had gathered. In the center of the courtyard stood a tall pillar with a rope tied around it. One of the guards approached, holding a sharp sword. Suddenly a voice boomed from behind the crowd. "Stop!" Herod emerged from the crowd, his face pale and drawn. This is the end of part 3. To watch part 4, click on this link or the picture. Thank you for watching. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. A young fisherman named John rowed his boat across the Sea of Galilee, the waves lapping gently against the sides as he cast his net into the deep. Together they wrapped the lifeless body in linen cloths and laid him in a borrowed tomb. His heart ached with the memory of his touch, the sound of his voice, the depth of his teachings. Yet even in his greatest moments of triumph, John couldn't shake the feeling that he would see Jesus again. Every rock monolith loomed over him like a silent specter. He walked on water, his arms outstretched, his eyes filled with love. "Come follow me," Jesus said, his voice booming like thunder, "for I have much more to show you." And then John woke up. Was it a dream or a vision? It held a golden scroll in its hand, the same scroll that John had written on. John had seen the future, and it was glorious. "Take this scroll and send it to the angel of the church of Ephesus," the angel commanded. He saw the risen Jesus in the garden after the resurrection. It really helps me keep making more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. He was exiled on the island of Patmos, where he received the visions for the book of Revelation. And he had a unique perspective on Jesus as the Word of God, the light of men, and the embodiment of God's love. Through John's eyes, we can see Jesus not just as a historical figure, but as the Savior of the world, who came to reveal God's love and offer us eternal life. John's story reminds us that we can find hope and healing even in the darkest of times, and that no matter what challenges we face, we can always turn to Jesus and find comfort in his words. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And with a nod, John rolled up his scroll and followed the angel out of the cave. As the light faded, he looked back to see the 7 angels standing beside the golden lampstand, their faces turned towards him, their eyes full of hope and expectation. Then John knew what he had to do. He took his scroll and flew away on the back of an eagle, following the angel as it disappeared into the distance. Had Jesus come for him? Or was he just going crazy from loneliness and hunger? John didn't know. But suddenly he wasn't afraid anymore. He rose to his feet, his heart pounding with excitement, and began to climb the tallest rock monolith on the island. I really tried to capture the essence of his story, the wonder, the awe, and the pure joy of being in the presence of Jesus. We can learn so much from John's example. He was a man who loved Jesus deeply and followed him faithfully, even in the darkest of times. When we read John's gospel, we can feel his love for Jesus shining through every word he wrote. And that's because John was a disciple of Jesus, someone who spent years learning from him and witnessing his miracles firsthand. He was there at the Last Supper, at the crucifixion, and at the empty tomb. And he was the only apostle who remained loyal to Jesus, even after Peter had denied him 3 times. Every cave seemed to hide some unknown beast ready to pounce. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. John grew thinner and weaker, his beard and hair matted and dirty. His feet were calloused and sore from walking. The sun beat down on his back, making his skin burn and peel. And at night, the cold seeped into his bones. He slept beside a shallow stream, its water muddy and stagnant, the sound of its trickle the only music to his ears. He longed for the day when he would lay his head on Jesus' chest once more and hear his voice speaking to him. But then John's luck ran out. The Roman Emperor Domitian, who had taken the title of Lord, began persecuting Christians throughout the empire. The opening yawned before him like a gaping wound, its darkness beckoning him forward. And with a deep breath, John stepped into the cave. And then John heard a voice like a trumpet blast. "Write down whatever you see on the scroll and send it to the churches." So John reached out his hand and took a scroll and a golden ink bottle. And as he dipped the tip of the quill into the ink, he saw visions of the future unfold before him, the rise and fall of empires, clash of good and evil, the final battle between Christ and the Antichrist, the ultimate victory of good over evil, and the glorious return of Jesus Christ. The light enveloped him, filling him with warmth and peace, banishing all fear and doubt. And then he saw it. A golden lampstand shone before him, its 7 branches reaching towards the heavens like supplicating arms. Beneath it stood a golden altar, and on it burned incense, its smoke curling upwards like prayers ascending to God. Then out of the corner of his eye, John saw something move. An angel with 6 wings stood before him, his face radiant with light, his eyes blazing with power. One by one, John's friends and fellow apostles were killed for their faith. And soon it was just John, alone and afraid, hiding in the wilderness of the island of Patmos. If Jesus was truly alive, why hadn't he come back to him? With heavy steps, John returned to his home, the words of the angels echoing in his ears. But then he heard a knock at the door. When he opened it, he saw Jesus standing before him, his eyes twinkling with love and understanding. "Go tell my disciples," Jesus said, "I am going to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." And John fell at his feet, overcome with emotion. But Jesus helped him up and said, "Have you believed?" John could only nod, tears streaming down his face. "You shall know him," Jesus said, laying his hand on John's chest. "Not yet, but later. You shall walk where I am walking." Then Jesus vanished, ascending into heaven. But early the next morning, before the sun rose, John and Peter raced to the tomb. "He is risen," Peter shouted, rushing past John to look inside. But John, filled with wonder, paused at the entrance, peering into the darkness of the tomb. It was empty. Where had Jesus gone? What had happened to his body? Is this a dream? Questions raced through John's mind as he finally stepped into the tomb and looked around. To his amazement, he saw 2 angels sitting where Jesus had lain, and they told him, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still with you, and said the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and crucified, and the 3rd day rise again." Beside him in the other boat was his older brother, James. He leaned back against Jesus' robe during the Last Supper, listening intently to his every word. As the night wore on and the others fell asleep, John stayed awake, resting his head on Jesus' chest, falling in and out of sleep until they finally reached Gethsemane. There, while the others ran from danger, John stood faithfully by Jesus, watching as he was beaten, spit upon, and mocked. He witnessed the piercing of the nails and the tearing of flesh as Jesus cried out, "It is finished." Then John did something no one else could. He stepped forward and took Jesus' mother, Mary, under his care. He walked with her as she watched her son die on the cross, shielding her face in moments of horror and holding her hand in quiet moments of grief. When all hope seemed lost, Mary found solace in the arms of the young man who had loved her son. And when the centurion cried out, "Truly, this was the Son of God," John knew it was true. He looked up at the heavens and saw the veil of the temple torn in two. Their father, Zebedee, had gone ahead to shore to mend their nets, leaving the 2 brothers to work the water. Suddenly, John felt a tug on his line, and with a mighty heave, he pulled a large fish out of the water. "Oh, come quick, James," he shouted. "I got one." But when John turned to his brother, he saw a strange sight. James was gone. In his place stood a man with piercing blue eyes, his dark hair flowing down his shoulders. "Who are you?" asked John. And the man replied, "My name is Jesus. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And so John and his brother left their boats and their nets and became disciples of Jesus. As the years passed, John grew close to Jesus. When Joseph came to take Jesus' body down from the cross, John was there to help him. John didn't believe it. How could Jesus be alive? John spent the rest of his life traveling the world, preaching the good news of Jesus Christ, healing the sick, and raising the dead. There he wandered the rocky hills, the wind whipping through the sparse trees, their branches gnarled and twisted like old bones. And then one night in his dreams, John saw Jesus coming towards him. As he neared the top, he saw a bright light coming from a cave behind him. And then another angel appeared, and then another and another until 7 encircled the lampstand, each one more glorious than the last. John wrote down everything he saw, and when he was finished, he looked up to see an angel approaching him. For John knew that Jesus was coming back, and when he did, the 7 angels would be there to welcome him. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this cinematic retelling of the Gospel of John. John was also a man who experienced profound visions and revelations. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. It's about 4 a.m. and the air is still and quiet. A cool breeze blows over the surface of the water, creating small ripples. The sky is dark, but it's light enough to see the tall reeds growing along the shoreline of the Jordan River. But Jesus is no longer there. So Andrew asks John, which way did he go? John turns to him and says, "He is going to Nazareth," falls to his knees before him and says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus tells Andrew and the other disciples, "I am sending you out like lambs among wolves." As they walk down a dusty road, we see the midday sun beating down on them. "How can you do that? You have no money." Andrew shakes his head. "Don't worry, we will take care of it." Andrew goes into the village and buys 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then he comes back to the crowd and gives the food to the people. The people eat and are filled, and many of them become followers of Jesus. Their clothes are dirty and their sandals are worn. But despite the heat, they are excited to share the good news about Jesus. The soldiers leave, and Andrew falls to his knees in front of Jesus. "Thank you for saving him," he says. Jesus puts his hands on the boy's shoulders and says, "Your faith has made the boy well. Go in peace." When they reach the village, they find a crowd of people gathered together. But soon Jesus will be crucified, and Andrew feels that he has failed in his mission. "Maybe he will save you, and I will kill you too." Andrew opens his eyes and looks at the criminal and says, "My God will save us both." Subscribe to our channel to watch all of our videos, including our other Bible stories. And remember, the God who said, "Let there be light in the beginning," is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The criminal laughs. Well, then let's see if he does. Andrew closes his eyes again and prays, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Lord, save me." Andrew cries out as the hours pass. The sun beats down on him, and the people mock him. But Andrew does not give up. He keeps praying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Lord, save me." People here have never heard of Jesus, and many of them are open to hearing the message that Andrew has to share. His body is weak and sore, and he knows that he won't survive the night. But then he hears a voice. "Andrew, my son, come to me." Andrew looks up and sees Jesus standing in front of him. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," Andrew says, and then he dies. They order that Andrew be arrested and taken to the capital. When Andrew hears the charges against him, he knows that he is in trouble. He is led through the streets of Athens and out to a hill where a large crowd is gathered. Andrew looks out over the crowd and sees a tall wooden cross waiting for him. He is to be crucified on an X-shaped cross, which was the most painful form of crucifixion. But others, including the chief priest and the chief of the guards, are not happy that Andrew is preaching about Jesus. They want him to stop, but he refuses. Instead, he continues to preach the good news, perform miracles, and make disciples. On the day of Jesus' ascension, however, he feels a renewed sense of purpose. With the other disciples, he witnesses Jesus ascend to heaven in a cloud, and he hears the words, "Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and forever." Just as Jesus promised, the Holy Spirit comes and Andrew receives power. And when they ask the people why they are gathered, someone says, "This is the place where the 5,000 were fed with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread." Andrew and the other disciples smile at each other, knowing that this is exactly what Jesus had told them would happen. Therefore, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. 2 criminals are also crucified on either side of Andrew. Andrew cries out in pain as the cross is lifted and he is nailed to it, but then he remembers Jesus' words. "When they persecute you, flee to the cities." So he closes his eyes and asks God for strength. After they finish eating, Jesus tells them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few." They look at each other and know that they must cross the river. "Come and tell me so that I may save his life, for I am his father, and I do not know if he is alive or dead." As they get closer, they can hear the beating of a whip and the angry voice of a man. They push aside a curtain and see a young boy surrounded by soldiers. "You don't know who you are dealing with," the boy says defiantly. "You will need more than your slingshot next time, little David." The soldier throws a stone at the boy and misses. Ruth steps out from behind the curtain and says, "Leave him alone. You don't know what you're doing." The soldier stops and stares at Andrew in disbelief. "What are you going to do about it?" Andrew takes a deep breath and says, "I am a disciple of Jesus of Nazareth." The soldier laughs and throws another stone at the boy. But this time, Andrew catches it in his hand. "Don't ever throw stones at anyone when you're in my presence," Andrew says angrily. "Is he my only son?" The men shake their heads. The father turns and walks away. Andrew looks at the other disciple and knows that they must help this boy. So they take off their clothes, tie them together, and use the bundle as a rope to swing themselves across. When they land on the other side, they hear some people talking. They hide behind a tree and listen. Ask the master of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Andrew looks at Jesus and asks, Lord, how can we do these things? Jesus replies, Go and buy a staff, a linen bag, sandals, and a cloak, and stay in a rooming house. For a worker deserves his food and lodging, and the scholars will give them what is needed. Jesus puts his hand on Andrew's shoulder and says, Yes, it is I, rise and follow me. And so Andrew becomes Jesus' first disciple. He will be called the carpenter, the son of Mary. Andrew and Simon look at each other and then at the crowd. They know that this is where their lives will never be the same again. One man, Andrew, is sitting on a rock quietly listening to John the Baptist preaching to a crowd of people who have come to be baptized by him. John is in the river up to his waist, and as he speaks, he points his finger at someone standing behind Andrew. Behold the Lamb of God, John says. Andrew turns around and sees a man unlike any other, stands with his shoulders slightly back, his head thrown back, and his face turned up to the heavens, as though he has just heard something wonderful and is rejoicing in it. Andrew quickly gets up from the rock, eager to tell his best friend Simon Peter what he has seen and heard. As he runs, we can see the determination in his stride, the excitement on his face. Soon he reaches Simon's house, bursts through the door, and shouts, We have found the Messiah. Simon looks at him in disbelief. Andrew grabs him by the hand and pulls him outside. Then they both run towards the river as fast as their legs can carry them. When they arrive, John is still baptizing people, and the crowds are still gathered together listening to him preach. Later that day, Andrew finds Jesus by the Sea of Galilee as the sun sets. Casting long shadows across the water, we see Andrew and Jesus walking along the shore. Soon after, Andrew is sent out with one of the other disciples to bring people to Jesus, as the crowd begins to thin out. Andrew steps forward and says, We want to feed the people. The people look at him in disbelief. Afterward, Andrew and the other disciple continue their journey until they come to a river. Where can we find this boy? The men speak in hushed voices. Which one of you has seen him? They walk toward the sound of distant shouting and drums. Then Jesus appears and tells the soldiers, Let the boy go. It's time for him to come home. As the years pass, Andrew continues to travel with Jesus and preach the good news about the kingdom of God. Filled with the Holy Spirit, Andrew sets sail and lands in the city of Patras in Greece. For years, Andrew travels throughout Greece, preaching about Jesus. However, the chief priest and the chief of the guards have had enough. The guards strip Andrew of his clothes and nail his wrists and ankles to the cross. One of the criminals says to Andrew, Why don't you pray to your God now? Finally, Andrew feels his strength leaving him. This has been the Cinematic Bible. The sun blazed across an ancient Middle Eastern landscape where golden sand met endless blue sky. The heat shimmered off the surface of a still lake, disturbing the tranquility of a small village nestled nearby. But for one man, peace was not found in the tranquil lake or the vast sky. His name was Elisha, and he walked with God. Elisha lived in a world that knew little of God, a world where magic and religion were intertwined and misunderstood. And he yearned for more, for a deeper understanding of the Creator. One day word spread through the village of a wise teacher who had come to a nearby town. They say he performed miracles, healed the sick, and spoke with the wisdom of ages. Intrigued and hopeful, Elisha decided to find this teacher. He set out on a journey, walking barefoot across the baking desert sands, towards the town where the teacher resided. The sun beat down on him, but Elisha did not falter. With every step, his faith grew. Reaching the town, he saw crowds gathered around a man who stood before them, radiating light and serenity. This was the teacher, the one spoken of in hushed tones by the villagers. As Elisha drew closer, he heard the teacher speak. God is good, the teacher said, his voice resonating with power, and he desires a relationship with each of you. Elisha's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the answer he sought? Could this man lead him closer to the Creator? With renewed determination, Elisha pushed through the crowd, eager to meet the teacher and learn from his wisdom. Amidst the clamor of the crowd, Elisha managed to approach the teacher. Kneeling down, he looked up at the man with earnest eyes. Master, he asked, his voice filled with reverence, I have come from afar. drawn by your wisdom and the miracles I have heard you perform. I am but a simple man, a man of deep faith, seeking to draw closer to the Creator. Can you help me?" The teacher's gaze, as deep and serene as the night sky, met Elisha's. A gentle smile touched his lips. "Your faith is commendable, Elisha," he began, his voice a soothing balm in the chaos. "But know that you are already close to the Creator. You just need to understand how." Touched by the teacher's words, Elisha felt a warmth spread through him. Hope blossomed like a desert flower after a rare rainfall. He spent the next few days with the teacher, learning from his teachings and observing his miracles. He watched as the teacher fed thousands from a few loaves of bread and fishes, as he healed the blind and the lame, as he calmed the stormy seas. Each miracle was a testament to the divine power that resided within the teacher. Yet it was the teacher's calm amidst the chaos, his serenity in the face of adulation, that truly captivated Elisha. It was as if the noise and frenzy of the crowds did not reach him, as if their cheers and astonishment were but a distant echo. In the teacher's eyes, Elisha saw a depth of understanding that transcended the physical world, connection to something greater that he yearned for. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Elisha found himself alone with the teacher by the tranquil lake. The events of the day still echoed in his mind: the multitude, the miracles, the teacher's enigmatic calm. Finally, he could contain his curiosity no longer. "Master," he began, his voice echoing the reverence he felt, "you perform incredible miracles, heal the sick, and bring the lost to the fold. You seem to be at peace, even in the midst of great turmoil. Can you enlighten me? Who are you, and what is the source of your power and unwavering peace?" The teacher turned to Elisha, his gaze as deep and fathomless as the lake's still waters. For a moment he was silent, his eyes distant, as if seeing beyond the physical world. Then he began to speak, his voice a low murmur that held the resonance of ages. "Elisha, you seek to know who I am and the source of my power and peace. Very well, I shall tell you. But understand that this knowledge, like all knowledge, is but a drop in the vast ocean of truth." Elisha nodded, his gaze unwavering, his heart pounding with anticipation. The teacher stood up, his silhouette outlined against the fiery hues of the setting sun. "I am a servant of the Most High," he began, his voice echoing with quiet authority, "a conduit through which the divine will flows. My miracles are not mine, but His. The power you see is His power made manifest through me. As for my peace, it is born of knowing that I am but a humble servant, a vessel through which the divine light shines. My peace comes from knowing that I am not the light, but only reflect it." Elisha absorbed these words, realizing that he had merely scratched the surface of the infinite depths of his teacher's wisdom. Yet a seed had been planted, a seed that would grow into an unshakable belief. The next morning, the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden light over the village. Elisha woke up, filled with a newfound purpose. He thanked the teacher for his guidance and the miracles he had witnessed, and he set out on his journey back home. But Elisha was no longer the same. Carried within him the light of understanding, the peace of faith, and the memory of miracles. As he walked, he began to share his experiences with everyone he met, telling them about the teacher by the lake and the miracles he had seen. At first, some dismissed his tales as the ramblings of a fanatic, but others listened, intrigued by his fervor. Elisha's journey took him far beyond his village, across rolling hills and through bustling cities. He walked barefoot, his simple robes flowing in the wind, his eyes shining with an inner light. Everywhere he went, he shared his faith, planting seeds of belief that took root in fertile hearts. Years passed, turning into decades. Elisha, now old and gray, continued his mission, his steps slowing but his spirit unwavering. Witnessed the birth of new faiths, saw the rise and fall of empires, yet he remained steadfast in his belief. One day, as he walked along a winding path, the sun setting behind him, casting long shadows around him, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. His journey, though long and arduous, had brought him full circle. He closed his eyes, a serene smile touching his lips. He had traveled the world, sharing his faith, and now it was time to rest. Elisha's story echoes through the ages, a testament to the power of faith and the enduring spirit of one man's journey to find and share the light. The desert sands whispered his name, carrying his tale to those who would listen. And under the vast canopy of stars, Elisha found his peace, his journey complete, his spirit soaring like a bird, finally free. In the quiet of the desert night, beneath the watchful gaze of a million stars, Elisha's story finds its final chapter. His body, weary from a lifetime of journeys, finally succumbs to the call of rest. But his spirit knows no bounds. When the sun rises the next morning, painting the desert in hues of gold and rose, the villagers find Elisha's body by the lake. There is no sorrow, only acceptance. They gather to share stories of his life, his faith, and the miracles they've witnessed because of him. Among them is the teacher by the lake. He stands quietly, a figure of calm amidst the murmurs, his presence a silent comfort. When the time comes for Elisha to be laid to rest, the teacher steps forward. With a gentle touch, he covers Elisha's body with the finest linen, his movements precise, almost ritualistic. As the body is lowered into the grave, the teacher speaks, his voice a low, resonant timbre that carries the weight of ages. Elisha has run his race with faith and has won the prize, he says, his gaze fixed on the spot where Elisha's body lies. Go now, my brother, into the presence of the Creator. You have been faithful here on earth, and your reward awaits you in the realms above. A hush falls over the crowd as they absorb the teacher's words. Some weep, others nod, their faces etched with understanding. The teacher then turns to the assembled villagers, his gaze sweeping over their upturned faces. Let us give thanks to God for the life of Elisha, a life lived in service of the divine, he says, raising his hands in a gesture of gratitude. And let us remember his words, his deeds, and the faith that burned brightly within him until his last breath. As the villagers disperse, each carrying their memories and lessons learned from Elisha, the teacher remains by the graveside. He sits quietly for a while, lost in thought, before rising to leave. As he walks away, his steps are slow, his shoulders stooped. Yet there is a lightness in his gait, a serenity in his bearing that speaks of peace. And so ends the story of Elisha, a man of deep faith who walked with God, who sought wisdom and shared it, who witnessed miracles and believed. His journey continues in the hearts of those he touched, in the lives he transformed, and in the faith he inspired. And the desert, with its vast expanse and timeless wisdom, keeps watch over it all. Once upon a time in the peaceful countryside of ancient Cana, there lived an honest man. He was well known throughout the region for his deep spiritual longing and unwavering commitment to truth. People often sought him out for his wisdom and guidance. One day, while spending some time alone in meditation under the shade of a fig tree, he began to pray for enlightenment and for the strength to continue his spiritual journey. Meanwhile, a dear friend of his had gone to visit a wise and revered teacher who lived many miles away. Upon hearing the man's deep spiritual longing, the friend exclaimed, "I must take my teacher to see this man under the fig tree. He has such an innocent heart, and I am sure my teacher will appreciate the opportunity to meet him." So the friend returned home and brought the teacher to the fig tree. As they approached, they noticed the man sitting in a meditative posture under its shade. The teacher, filled with admiration, approached the man and warmly greeted him. "Greetings, friend," he said. "I have heard about your deep spiritual longing, and I am eager to meet you." The man, surprised and somewhat intimidated by the unexpected visitor, humbly replied, "Greetings, teacher. I am honored by your presence, but I must confess that I am not worthy of it." The teacher, sensing the man's humility and sincerity, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Do not be so hard on yourself, my friend. You are as worthy as anyone else who seeks the path of enlightenment. I have come here today because I want to learn from you, just as you have something valuable to share with others." The man, still feeling a sense of unworthiness, hesitated before sharing his thoughts and experiences. However, with gentle encouragement from the teacher, he began to speak. "I have been searching for the truth for many years now," he said, "and although I feel like I have come closer to understanding it, I still have so much to learn. I spend my days in prayer and meditation, trying to connect with the divine and seeking guidance on how to live a more meaningful life. Sometimes I feel like I am making progress, but other times I feel lost and confused. I yearn for the day when I can truly understand the nature of reality and my place in the cosmos. But until then, I will continue to search and I hope that one day I will find what I am looking for." As the man spoke, the teacher listened attentively, nodding his head in understanding. He could tell that the man was sincere in his quest for enlightenment, and that his heart was pure. When the man finished speaking, the teacher thanked him for his honesty and shared his own thoughts and experiences with him. They talked for hours about various topics, including the nature of reality, the purpose of life, and the importance of living with integrity. As the sun began to set, the teacher knew it was time to say goodbye. He stood up and thanked the man for his hospitality and the opportunity to meet him. Before leaving, the teacher gave the man a small gift, a hand-carved wooden pendant in the shape of a flower. "Here is a symbol of our meeting," he said. "May it remind you that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found if you just open your eyes to see it." The man accepted the gift with gratitude and promised to keep it safe. As the teacher and his friend walked away, the man sat down under the fig tree and thought about their conversation. He felt inspired to continue his spiritual journey and to never give up on his search for the truth. As the stars came out and the moon shone brightly in the sky, the man fell asleep under the fig tree, dreaming of all the knowledge he had gained during his life. The next morning, the man woke up feeling refreshed and renewed. He looked up at the sky and smiled. He felt like the universe was conspiring to help him on his spiritual journey. He picked up the wooden pendant and held it in his hands. It felt warm to the touch and seemed to radiate a soft light. The man knew that this was a sign that he was on the right path. From that day forward, the man's life changed. He became even more dedicated to his spiritual practice and began to travel to different parts of the world in search of wisdom and enlightenment. He visited ancient temples, talked to wise monks, and spent long periods of time in solitude and reflection. During his travels, the man encountered many challenges, but he never lost sight of his goal. He knew that the pursuit of knowledge and self-discovery was a lifelong journey, and he embraced it with open arms. Over the years, the man became known as a great sage, a teacher who had unlocked the secrets of the universe and could guide others on their own spiritual journeys. People from all over the world came to him seeking wisdom and enlightenment, and he shared his teachings with them freely. The man's message was simple but profound. He taught that the key to happiness and fulfillment lay within each individual, and that everyone had the potential to achieve enlightenment. He encouraged his students to follow their hearts, to trust in the universe, and to never give up in the face of adversity. But the man never forgot the day that the wise teacher had visited him under the fig tree. He often recalled their deep conversation and the sense of connection he had felt. He realized that it was this encounter that had set him on the path to enlightenment, and he was eternally grateful for it. The man continued to travel and teach until his old age, when he decided to settle down in a foreign land. As he grew older, his body became weaker, and his hair turned white as snow. But his mind remained sharp, and his spirit was still strong. He spent his final years writing down his teachings and sharing them with his students, preparing them to carry on his legacy when he was gone. Eventually, the time came when the man knew he was near the end of his life. He called his students to his side and told them, "My time on this earth is running out, but I am not afraid. I have lived a long and fulfilling life, and I have shared my knowledge with those who were willing to listen. I leave you now with the same message I have always shared. Follow your hearts, trust in the universe, and never give up in the face of adversity. These are the keys to happiness and enlightenment. May you find peace and joy in your journey through life, and may you always remember the importance of living with integrity and seeking wisdom." With that, the man closed his eyes and breathed his last breath. His body was laid to rest in a peaceful meadow in a foreign land, far from his home in Cana, but his spirit continued to live on in the hearts of those who had learned from him. The story of the honest man from Cana continued to be told for generations to come, inspiring people to seek wisdom, enlightenment, and a deeper connection with the divine. Whenever you find yourself feeling lost or uncertain of your path in life, remember the story of the honest man from QAnon. May it remind you that no matter where you are on your journey, there is always light to be found if you just open your eyes to see it. Remember that wisdom and enlightenment are within your reach, if you are willing to seek them. Most importantly, believe in the power of your own heart to guide you to the truth. The camera slowly moves forward through the tall grass, following the path to where the man's face is illuminated by the light of the setting sun. His eyes are closed, and his face is serene and peaceful, as if he is at rest and free from all worry and strife. The light around him seems to grow brighter and warmer, enveloping him in a comforting glow. It's as if the sun itself is shining just for him, celebrating his journey and honoring his spirit. As the camera moves closer, we can see the details on his face, the wrinkles and lines that tell the story of a life well lived, a life filled with purpose and meaning. There is a faint smile on his lips, as if he is content and satisfied with the journey that has brought him to this moment. The camera continues to move forward, and as it does, the light around the man becomes more intense, almost blinding. It's as if he is being drawn towards the light, pulled by an unseen force. The camera finally reaches the edge of the frame, and all we can see is the bright light and the faint outline of the man's face. It's as if he has become one with the light, his individual form no longer important. The light fades to black, leaving us in darkness. It's a moment of quiet contemplation, a time for reflection and peace. Then, just as suddenly as the light appeared, it begins to shine again, brighter and more vibrant than before. It fills the screen, washing away the darkness and revealing a new scene. The camera pans slowly, taking in the vast expanse of the night sky, filled with stars and planets. It's a breathtaking sight, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and our place within it. And as we gaze up at the stars, we can't help but feel a sense of wonder and awe. The endless possibilities that lie ahead, the adventures that await us, the discoveries yet to be made. It's a feeling of freedom and possibility, a reminder that anything is possible if we dare to dream big and follow our hearts. A long time ago in a faraway land, there was a bustling marketplace filled with merchants selling all sorts of goods from spices to fabrics and pottery. Among the crowds, there was a solitary figure sitting on a low stool, patiently counting his coins. This was Lucius, a tax collector who had been working at the marketplace for many years. He was a stern and serious man, with a thick beard and mustache, dressed in a long robe fastened with a belt. As the days went by, Lucius would sit there day after day, collecting taxes from the merchants. The other vendors at the market tried their best to avoid him, because he was known to be a very strict and harsh tax collector. They would try to bribe him, bargain with him, or even lie about their earnings just to pay him less. But Lucius didn't care about any of that. All he cared about was collecting the taxes that were owed to the emperor. One day, as Lucius was sitting there counting his coins, he saw a group of people gathered around a merchant listening intently to what he was saying. Curious, Lucius got up from his stool and joined the crowd. The merchant was a teacher who was known for his wisdom and kindness. He was talking about the importance of living a virtuous life, and how one should always strive to be the best version of themselves. Lucius listened to the teacher's words and felt a sense of unease wash over him, realized that he had become consumed with his work and had lost sight of what was truly important in life. He had become so focused on collecting taxes that he had neglected his own well-being and the well-being of those around him. As the teacher finished his lesson, he looked at Lucius and said, "My friend, why don't you come and join me? I can teach you the ways of stoicism and help you find peace within yourself." Lucius was hesitant at first, but something in the teacher's voice made him agree. And so Lucius left his stool and his coins and followed the teacher out of the marketplace. As they walked together, the teacher, whose name was Zeno, told Lucius about the philosophy of Stoicism, which emphasized the importance of living in harmony with nature, accepting what you cannot control, and always striving to do the right thing. Lucius listened attentively, feeling a sense of hope and inspiration that he hadn't felt in years. After a while, Zeno turned to Lucius and said, "I want you to come with me on a journey. I am going to a small village where I have been invited to teach the people there. You can come with me and learn more about Stoicism firsthand." Lucius hesitated for a moment, thinking about his job and his life in the city. But he knew that he couldn't continue living the way he had been. He had to make a change, and following Zeno seemed like the right thing to do, so he agreed. And the two of them set off on their journey, leaving the marketplace and Lucius's old life behind them. They walked along a dirt road through fields of grain and past small villages, and Lucius felt a sense of calm and contentment that he had never experienced before. When they finally arrived at the village, Zeno introduced Lucius to the people there and told them that Lucius would be staying with them for a few days. The villagers welcomed Lucius warmly and treated him with kindness and respect, which was a stark contrast to how he had been treated in the city. Over the next few days, Lucius spent his time listening to Zeno's teachings and talking to the villagers. He learned about the importance of living a simple life, being grateful for what you have, and helping others whenever you can. He also learned about the concept of apathy, which in Stoicism means to be free from the passions and emotions that causes pain and suffering. As Lucius was writing down these words to remember them, a young boy approached him and asked, "What are you doing?" Lucius looked up from his writing and smiled at the boy. "I'm learning about Stoicism," he said. "It is a philosophy that teaches us how to live a good and virtuous life." The boy's eyes widened with curiosity and he asked, "Can I see what you're writing?" Lucius hesitated for a moment, but then he agreed. He showed the boy the words he had written down, and the boy read them aloud. "Don't let the things you do for a living interfere with your higher purpose." The boy looked up at Lucius and asked, "What is my higher purpose?" Lucius thought about the question for a moment. "Your higher purpose is to be the best version of yourself," he said. "It is to live a life that is true to your values and that makes you happy." The boy nodded his head slowly, as if he were trying to understand the concept. "But how can I do that?" he asked. "I am only a young boy. I don't know what my purpose is." Lucius smiled at the boy's innocence and said, "That is the beauty of being young, my boy. You have the whole world at your feet. You can do whatever you want to do and become whoever you want to be." The boy thought about this for a moment, and then he asked, "So what should I do now?" Lucius looked at the boy and said, "Go and follow your heart. Go and explore the world. Most importantly, go and learn from those who are wiser than you." The boy nodded his head and thanked Lucius for his advice. Then he ran off to go and play. Lucius watched the boy go and couldn't help but smile. It was amazing to see the innocence and wonder in the boy's eyes. It reminded Lucius of a time when he, too, had been young and full of curiosity about the world. As the days went by, Lucius continued to listen to Zeno's teachings and learn about the principles of Stoicism. He started to feel a sense of inner peace and calm that he had never felt before. He realized that he had been carrying around a lot of anger and resentment for many years, and it had only caused him pain and suffering. But now he understood that he had the power to let go of those negative emotions and start fresh. When it was time for Lucius to leave, the villagers gathered around him and thanked him for coming to their village and sharing his wisdom with them. Zeno embraced Lucius and said, "You have learned much here, my friend, and I know that you will use what you have learned to make a positive impact on the world." Lucius nodded his head and said, "Thank you, Zeno, for teaching me the ways of Stoicism. I feel like I have a new lease on life." And so Lucius said goodbye to Zeno and the villagers and set off on his journey home. As he walked along the road, he felt a sense of purpose and direction that he had never felt before. He knew that he could not go back to his old life as a tax collector. He had learned too much and grown too much as a person. Lucius decided to use what he had learned from Zeno to start a new life for himself. He wanted to help others and make a positive impact on the world. He didn't know exactly what that would look like, but he was open to possibilities. As the sun began to set, Lucius found a quiet spot by the road and sat down to write. He took a scroll and a quill and began to write down the words that he had learned from Zeno. He wrote about the importance of living a virtuous life, accepting what you cannot control, and always striving to do the right thing. As he wrote, a golden light began to surround him, and he felt a sense of peace and calm that he had never experienced before. He realized that he had found his higher purpose, to share the wisdom he had learned with the world. And so Lucius continued to write, and the golden light continued to surround him, and he knew that he would never be the same again. The desert road stretched endlessly before him, a path illuminated by the golden light that flowed from Lucius, inviting him to keep moving forward into the unknown. The light carried with it the echoes of Zeno's teachings and the whispers of the villagers, a constant reminder of the wisdom he had gained and the lives he had touched. Each step Lucius took was a testament to his journey, a journey from a life consumed by duty and greed to a path illuminated by knowledge and purpose. His weathered hands gripping the scroll tightly, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. With each sunrise, the glow around him intensified, becoming a beacon of hope for those who crossed his path, drawing them towards the light of wisdom and enlightenment. And as the sun set, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Lucius continued his walk, his silhouette a stark yet beautiful image against the vibrant canvas of the twilight sky. He was no longer just a tax collector from the bustling marketplace, but a beacon of stoic wisdom, a testament to the transformative power of knowledge and the unwavering human spirit. His journey was far from over, but with every step illuminated by the golden light of understanding, he knew he would never walk alone. If you liked this video, check out more of my videos where ancient stories meet cinematic visuals and motivational music. There once was a man from ancient Judea. He was known for his thoughtful ways. Not much was spoken about him, but those who knew him understood his heart. Though he wasn't loud or boisterous like many, his loyalty ran deeper than the ocean, and his spirit soared higher than an eagle. He would regularly walk among a group of people who followed him, learning what they learned and doing what they did. One day, as they walked along, suddenly their teacher stopped. He turned around and looked at them all. "My beloved students," he began, his voice echoing with authority and love, "I have news that will shake your very core. The King of the Jews whom you have crucified has risen from the dead." There was a stunned silence. They were deeply saddened by the death of their teacher, yet the thought of him rising from the dead filled them with hope. But this man felt nothing. No joy, no sorrow, only emptiness inside. "I don't believe it," he said, stepping forward. "I must see for myself. Until then, it means nothing to me." His teacher looked at him, understanding the turmoil within. "Very well," he said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "She'll be the first to see him." And so saying, the teacher dismissed the others, leaving only this man behind. Then, miraculously, they both vanished from that spot. When they reappeared, they stood before the very tomb where the body of their teacher had been laid to rest. As the man approached, fear gripped him, not because of the tomb, but because of what he might find, or rather not find. What if he didn't see his teacher? What if the others were right, and he alone was doubting? He reached the entrance and pushed aside the stone slab. As the cool air from within hit him, his heart pounded. He looked into the empty space where the body had been placed. And in that moment, he saw not just an empty tomb, but an empty cross. A cross that spoke volumes of sacrifice, of love, of victory over death. He turned slowly, his eyes searching for his teacher, and there he was standing behind him. Gentle smile played on his lips. The man couldn't speak. His throat was dry. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what he was seeing, what he was feeling. Was this real, or a figment of his imagination? The teacher, noticing his struggle, stepped closer, his eyes filled with kindness and understanding. "Do you still doubt?" he asked softly. The man hesitated, his gaze fixed on his teacher's face. Slowly, he shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. Couldn't speak, but his eyes conveyed everything. Doubt, disbelief, hope, longing, and finally overwhelming love and admiration. In that moment, he understood. He didn't need to see the marks of the nails or the spear wound in his side. He felt the weight of his teacher's sacrifice in his heart. It was real, tangible, undeniable. His teacher hadn't risen merely from the dead. He had risen to new life, to victory, to hope. And he, this man, was privileged to witness it firsthand. As he stood there, tears streaming down his face, he knew he wasn't just a disciple anymore. He was a follower, a believer, a witness. He was a part of something bigger than himself. He was part of the unfolding story of humanity itself. The man fell to his knees, unable to contain the torrent of emotion surging through him. His hands reached out, touching his teacher's hands, now bearing the marks of the nails. Those nails that had once pierced flesh and bone were now cold and lifeless. The rough texture of the wood beneath his fingertips was a testament to the suffering his teacher had endured. The sight of the empty cross was a constant reminder of the immense price that had been paid. And the echo of his teacher's laughter resonated in his ears, a melody that stirred his soul. As the days went by, a profound transformation took place within him. Fear was replaced by courage, doubt by faith. He remembered the stories his teacher had shared, the parables, the teachings, the miracles. He recalled the moments of joy, the times of adversity, and the unwavering belief that had been the cornerstone of his teacher's life. The man realized that his teacher's death had not been an end, but a beginning. It was the opening of a new chapter, not just in his own life, but in the history of humanity. He was now a vessel of truth, entrusted with the responsibility of carrying the message of hope and redemption to the world. He journeyed far and wide, crossing vast distances and enduring great hardships. He walked barefoot over scorching deserts and treacherous mountain paths, driven by the burning desire to spread the word. The faces of his listeners were etched with curiosity, skepticism, and sometimes even hostility. But he persisted, undeterred by their reactions. For he knew that the message he carried was not his own. It was a divine commission. He spoke with conviction, his voice echoing the words of his teacher. He told stories of love, forgiveness, faith, and resurrection. Each word was a brushstroke, painting a vivid picture of the extraordinary life his teacher had lived. He described the miracles, the healings, the teachings, and above all, the sacrifice. He spoke of the empty tomb not as a symbol of despair, but as a monument to victory. The man's presence was magnetic. His sincerity was palpable. People gathered from far and wide to hear him speak, drawn by the sheer force of his conviction. Some scoffed, some argued, but many listened intently, their hearts touched by the depth of his faith. He didn't shy away from controversy. He engaged in debates with religious leaders, his arguments rooted in his personal experience and the words of his teacher. He challenged the status quo, stirring both admiration and resentment. His impact was undeniable. People's lives were transformed, sins were forgiven, hearts were healed, and faith was restored. The man became known for his unwavering commitment to the message. His very name became synonymous with the teachings of his beloved teacher. Yet amidst the adulation and the growing following, the man remained humble. He knew that the credit was not his. He was merely a conduit, a vessel through which the message flowed. His own name faded into the background, becoming less important than the message he carried. To him, his teacher was the star, the light that illuminated his path and guided him through the darkness. Years turned into decades, and the man's mission continued unabated. He traveled to distant lands, braving the elements and enduring hardship, faced imprisonment, persecution, and exile, but his spirit remained unbroken. Even when his hair turned gray and his steps became slower, he didn't falter. He was a soldier of God, and his duty was eternal. And so the tale of the man from ancient Judea echoed through the ages. His story became a beacon of inspiration for generations to come. He personified loyalty, courage, and unwavering faith. And when he finally closed his eyes for the last time, he looked up to the heavens in a foreign land, ready to make his final sacrifice. A long time ago in the ancient land of Judea, there lived a very humble man named James, son of Alphaeus. He was a simple man who didn't have much, but he had a deep faith in God and a heart full of love for his fellow man. He was known throughout the region for his quiet and humble nature, always putting the needs of others before his own. One day, James heard about a wise teacher who was traveling through the area, and he wanted to meet him. As he walked along dusty roads, he passed through small villages and fields of grain, all the while keeping an eye out for any sign of the teacher. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, James began to feel discouraged. He had walked for hours and still hadn't found anyone who knew where the teacher was. So he decided to go over and ask them if they had seen the teacher. To his great joy, they told him that the teacher was resting under a nearby tree and would be happy to see him. When James finally met the teacher, he was amazed by his wisdom and compassion. From that moment on, he became one of his most faithful followers, traveling with him from village to village. Listening to his teachings and helping to spread his message of love and forgiveness, he spent his days learning from the teacher and his nights sleeping beside his friends around campfires, sharing stories and making plans for the future. Throughout their travels, the teacher often spoke to James, asking his opinion on various matters and acknowledging his wisdom and insight. Despite this, James remained humble and never sought the spotlight. He was content to simply follow the teacher and learn from him, always striving to be a better person. One day, as the group was walking through a village, they came across a poor widow sitting on a stone house crying. Although the disciples were reluctant, knowing they couldn't raise the dead, James stepped forward. He gently placed his hand on the woman's shoulder and told her not to worry. He promised to take care of everything and asked her to come with him to a quiet place. The other disciples agreed, and after several hours of prayer, they went back to the widow's house. James led the way, and when they entered the room where the boy lay, he told everyone to have faith in God. Then, placing his hands on the boy's body, he began to pray. As he prayed, the boy's body began to move, and soon he was sitting up and crying. Everyone was amazed, and James simply smiled and said, "Have faith in God." The widow was overjoyed and thanked James for saving her son. She offered to make them all food, but they declined and continued on their journey. As they traveled, the other disciples couldn't understand how James had raised the boy from the dead. They asked him to explain it, but he only smiled and told them that anything is possible if you believe in God. He also reminded them that they shouldn't perform miracles for glory or recognition, but only to help those in need. James continued to travel with the teacher for many years, learning from him and helping to spread his message. He was always there to lend a helping hand to those in need and never asked for anything in return. He was content with simply living a life of service and helping others to understand the teachings of the teacher. Then one day, the teacher gathered his followers together and told them that the time had come for him to leave. He explained that he had been sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel to bring them back to God, but that now his mission was complete, and he would be returning to his Father in heaven. The disciples were devastated and begged the teacher to stay, but he told them that he had to go. He then gave them one final message, telling them to remain in love and to keep his teachings in their hearts. With that, he left them and began his journey to Jerusalem, where he would eventually be crucified. After the teacher was gone, James and the other disciples knew that they had to continue his work. They gathered together and began to discuss what they should do. James, being the humble man that he was, suggested that they should go out into the world and share the message of love and forgiveness with everyone they met. The other disciples agreed, and so they went out into the world, each going their separate ways. James traveled from town to town, sharing the message of the teacher and helping those in need. He visited the sick and the poor, offering them food and encouraging them to have faith in God. He also taught people about the importance of loving one another and forgiving those who had wronged them. And wherever he went, people listened to his message and believed in God. As the years passed, James continued to travel and teach until he was an old man. His hair was white as snow, and his beard reached down to his chest. But even in his old age, he was full of energy and enthusiasm. He never lost his passion for teaching and helping others, and he continued to do so until his dying day. Finally, the day came when James, son of Alphaeus, looked up into the sky for the last time. He had been traveling through a small village when he felt a sudden weakness come over him, sat down on a nearby rock and closed his eyes, and when the villagers saw him, they rushed to his side. They had heard about the great teacher who had come to their town, and they wanted to see him. When they looked up into his eyes, they could see that he was peaceful and content, and they knew that he was in the presence of God. So the villagers gathered around James and began to pray. They prayed for his soul and for the strength to continue the work that he had started. And as they prayed, James's body slowly began to fade away until it was just a skeleton. The villagers were heartbroken, but they knew that James was in a better place. They buried his bones in a nearby field and made a small monument over his grave. And every year they came to this place to remember him and to pray for his intercession. And that is the story of James, son of Alphaeus, a simple man who lived a simple life, but who made a big difference in the world. His story teaches us that we don't need to be rich or famous to make an impact. All we need is a heart full of love and a willingness to help others. Thank you for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button below to let us know. We'd also appreciate it if you could subscribe to our channel so you never miss an upload. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. In the heart of ancient Judea, nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering date palms, there existed a small village that held within its humble walls a secret. For here, far from the bustling streets of Jerusalem, a lesser-known follower of the great teacher walked and talked among the common folk, sharing wisdom and tales that stirred their souls. His name was Jude, also called Thaddeus. He was one of the 12 followers of the teacher, yet his deeds and words were less celebrated than some of his companions. Yet without him, the circle of the teacher would have been incomplete. This is his story. Let's go back in time when Jesus, also known as the Christ Yeshua or the Son of God, depending on who you talk to, was still walking the earth, teaching about love, peace, and kindness. Among his disciples were Peter, James, and John, whose names echoed through history. But hidden away in the quiet corners of Scripture, we find Jude, a man of unwavering faith, but of humble means, often overlooked, yet always present. The year is 30 CE in the village of Shiloh. Jude sat among the 12, drinking in the words of his teacher. The air was thick with the scent of fresh figs and the murmur of excited conversation as people came and went. It was after a particularly moving lesson about faith and miracles that he approached his teacher in private, his eyes filled with a deep longing. "Lord," he began, his voice filled with earnest curiosity, "why do you show yourself to us and not to the world? Why do you speak in parables and use symbolism when you could just tell us plainly what we need to know?" His question hung in the air, echoing the doubts and confusion that often clouded human understanding. Yeshua looked at him, his gaze penetrating yet filled with warmth and understanding. He knew that behind Judah's question lay a deeper thirst for knowledge, a yearning for a more profound understanding of his mission. And so he answered, his voice a calm ripple in the sea of Judah's uncertainty. "The secret is this, my friend. You cannot see the kingdom of God unless your hearts are open to it, your spirit receptive. It is not enough to merely look with the eyes, you must see with the heart. The kingdom of God is within you, and it is for those who believe that these things shall be made clear." With that, Yeshua turned away, leaving Judas to ponder his words. In that moment, something shifted within Judas. He realized that his teacher was not just a preacher of religious doctrine, but a guide to a way of life, a way of seeing the world and his place within it. Judas left that secluded spot with a renewed sense of purpose. He pondered his teacher's words, trying to align his actions with the teachings he had heard. He began to approach his daily life with a more open heart, recognizing the divine presence that permeated all things. His journey was not easy, however. The road ahead was long and fraught with challenges. Despite the clarity he had found in his teacher's words, fear and doubt still whispered in his ear. Questions about his faith, his purpose, and the uncertain future plagued his thoughts. Yet through it all, Jude held fast to the belief that his teacher's words were a guiding light that could lead him through the darkest of nights. One day, Yeshua gathered his followers, including Jude, and told them, "The time has come for you to take the message of love, peace, and understanding to all nations. Go into the world and be my witnesses. Teach others to follow my way of life, for I am sending you out now, just as my Father sent me." These words resonated deeply within Jude, igniting a fire of determination in his heart. He realized that his purpose was not merely to understand, but to share, to spread the teachings of his beloved teacher to every corner of the known world. As the other disciples got ready to embark on their missions, Jude hesitated. Fear threatened to engulf him, paralyzing his ability to act. His companions noticed his struggle, and in their camaraderie, they encouraged him, reminding him of his teacher's words. They helped him find strength in his convictions, equipping him with the tools and support he needed to face his fears head-on. With their help, he prepared himself for the journey ahead. When the time came for them to part ways, Jude felt a surge of emotion. There were moments of joy, laughter, and shared dreams, as well as tears, hugs, and promises to reunite someday. As he watched his companions disappear into the horizon, each taking a different path, Jude knew that he, too, had to start his own journey. He set out on a path that led him away from the familiar streets of his hometown and into the vast unknown. Along the way, he encountered countless individuals from various backgrounds, each with their own stories, beliefs, and perspectives. Through it all, he carried with him the teachings of his teacher, using them as a compass to guide his interactions. At first, his journey was challenging. Jude's initial attempts to share his beliefs were met with skepticism and even hostility. Some dismissed his words as mere religious fanaticism, while others mocked his faith. However, Jude remained steadfast, refusing to compromise on his principles. He adapted his teachings to the unique circumstances of each encounter, showing compassion, understanding, and a genuine desire to connect with those he met. Slowly but surely, his persistence paid off. People began to listen, intrigued by his unwavering belief and the positive impact it had on his life. Jude's gentle and patient approach broke down barriers, allowing his message of love, peace, and kindness to take root. He didn't force his beliefs on anyone, but instead offered them as a source of comfort and guidance. As the years passed, Jude's reputation grew. News of his wisdom and the remarkable transformations he had inspired in others spread far and wide. People from distant lands, drawn to his teachings, started journeying to meet him. They came seeking solace, guidance, or simply a deeper understanding of the world around them. Undeterred by the distance or the hardships involved, Jude welcomed everyone with open arms. He traveled to distant lands, braving the challenges of unfamiliar terrain and languages. He navigated bustling cities and serene villages, sharing his message wherever he went. His journey became a testament to his unwavering commitment to his beliefs. It was during one of his travels that Jude found himself in an ancient village nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering date palms. As he walked through the village, he noticed the tired faces of the people. Their shoulders were slumped, their eyes downcast, burdened by the weight of their everyday struggles. With a heavy heart, Jude stopped in the village square and turned to face the villagers. He stood tall, his gaze steady, and his voice resonated with sincerity. "Friends, I bring a message of hope and healing from one who understands your pain and yearns to ease your burdens. Do not lose heart, for even in the darkest of times, the light of a new day will shine. Believe in the promise of a better tomorrow, for it is within your reach." The villagers listened intently, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Jude continued, "You may feel lost and alone, but know that you are not forsaken. A higher power watches over you, offering strength and solace in your moments of despair. Have faith in this guiding light, for it will lead you out of the shadows and into the warmth of a brighter future." As he spoke, a hush fell over the crowd. They leaned in, eager to hear more. "Embrace the teachings that have the power to transform your lives and set you on a path toward inner peace and true happiness," he proclaimed. "Open your hearts to the possibilities that await you, for they hold the key to unlocking your full potential and living a life filled with purpose and meaning." Jude's words struck a chord within them, awakening a flicker of hope in their weary hearts. After finishing his message, Jude saw a change in the villagers. Their faces were lighter, their steps surer, and their eyes shone with newfound determination. Jude knew that his mission was complete in that moment. He had planted a seed of hope that, with proper care, would blossom into something beautiful. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the village, Jude turned to leave. But before he did, the villagers gathered around him, their faces aglow with gratitude and admiration. "Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us," they said. "Your words have given us hope and strength to face the challenges that lie ahead." Touched by their appreciation, Jude smiled and replied, "Remember, the light of hope always shines brighter than the darkness of despair. Keep this light within you and let it guide you towards a future filled with promise." With that, he stepped back, allowing the villagers to surround him in a final circle. And then something extraordinary happened. A soft glow enveloped Jude, emanating from the depths of his being. It radiated outwards, bathing the entire village square in a warm, inviting light. The villagers gasped in awe as they witnessed this mesmerizing spectacle. As the light faded, revealing Jude once again, they saw a change in him. His face seemed to glow with an otherworldly radiance. His eyes twinkled with joy, and a smile played on his lips. In that moment, they understood that Jude wasn't just a traveler who had come to share words of wisdom. He was a beacon of hope, a living embodiment of the teachings he had shared with them. With renewed hope and determination in their hearts, the villagers watched as Jude continued on his journey, disappearing into the warm glow of the setting sun. They knew that they would never forget the light he had brought into their lives, and they were inspired to carry that light within them always. This is a story that took place in a land far, far away, a land where the sun blazed hot and strong, and the people yearned for justice, for freedom, for a taste of the good life. Oh, let's paint a picture of a man. Let's call him Simon. He was a man of passion. His eyes burned with the fire of 1,000 suns. His voice echoed with the strength of 10. He walked with purpose through the crowded streets, his every step firm, his gaze steady. And wherever he went, people listened. They hung on his every word because Simon spoke their language, the language of freedom. He talked about throwing off the shackles of oppression, about breaking the chains that bound them, about rising up against those who had kept them down for too long. One day, Simon found himself amidst a bustling crowd. The air crackled with energy as people from all walks of life came together. There were merchants with their colorful wares, farmers with baskets overflowing with fresh produce, and artisans displaying their exquisite crafts. Amidst this vibrant chaos, Simon stood out like a beacon. As always, he captivated the crowd, his words hitting home like arrows of truth. He urged them to fight for their rights, to stand up against injustice. Each word that left his mouth fueled the flames of rebellion in the hearts of the people. But something stirred within him, a feeling he couldn't quite place. Was it curiosity? Was it a hint of doubt? Or was it a yearning for something more, something beyond the clamor for freedom? Simon felt an unexpected tug in his chest, drawing him away from the crowd and towards a different kind of gathering. In a quiet corner of the marketplace, nestled amidst the vibrant chaos, there was a group of people sitting in a circle. Their demeanors were calm, their voices soft, yet their words held a profound weight. He noticed a man in the center, someone who exuded an otherworldly serenity. This man wasn't like any other Simon had seen. There was a gentleness about him, a tranquility that seemed to envelop everyone around. And as Simon stood there observing, he couldn't help but wonder, who is this man? What is he saying? As if sensing Simon's presence, the man turned, his eyes locking onto Simon's. In that instant, something shifted. It was as though the man had seen right through Simon's passionate exterior, understanding the turmoil that lay beneath. With a serene smile gracing his lips, the man rose, his movements fluid and graceful. He extended an invitation, beckoning Simon to join the circle. Simon hesitated, torn between his lifelong pursuit of freedom through rebellion and the inexplicable pull towards this man and his teachings. But curiosity got the better of him. He decided to step into the circle. As he did, the world seemed to hush. All eyes were on him, expectant, curious. The man, noticing Simon's discomfort, spoke, his voice resonating with warmth and understanding. "You are tired, Simon," he said, his words echoing in Simon's soul. "You have fought hard and long for your people, for your beliefs." Simon looked up, startled. How did this man know him? Had he been watching him? The man continued, his gaze unwavering. "You yearn for a better world, a world free from oppression, free from hatred." Simon felt a lump forming in his throat. "Yes," he thought. "How did you know?" The man's eyes twinkled with kindness. "But there is another way," he said, "a path less traveled, a journey of the heart." Simon frowned, confused. What did he mean? The man held out a hand, palm up, fingers relaxed. "Come with me," he invited, "and I will show you a kingdom that is not built on swords or shields, but on love, on forgiveness, on peace." Simon stared at the outstretched hand, torn between his old convictions and the man's intriguing offer. In that moment, he knew his life was about to change. He took the man's hand, and with that simple gesture, he stepped onto a path that would lead him to a destiny he could have never imagined. And so began Simon's journey under the guidance of this peaceful teacher. He traveled with the 12, learning from their teachings, witnessing their miracles, and most importantly, experiencing a side of humanity he had never known existed. The teacher spoke of turning the other cheek, of loving one's enemies, of seeking peace, not just freedom. These concepts were foreign to Simon, yet they resonated with a part of him that had been dormant for so long. As days turned into weeks, Simon found himself drawn deeper into the teacher's way. His heart softening, his anger dissipating, began to see the oppressors not as unassailable figures of authority, but as human beings capable of change, capable of redemption. This realization brought him a sense of calm he had never known. Then one day, the unthinkable happened. The teacher was arrested, accused of blasphemy, of claiming to be the Messiah. Simon watched helplessly as they led the teacher away, his face ashen, his eyes filled with sadness. In that moment, Simon knew he had a choice to make. Would he go back to his old ways, to the fiery rhetoric of revolution, or would he stay true to the teachings of the one who had shown him the path of peace? As the trial commenced, Simon found himself among the crowd, listening intently to the accusations being hurled at the teacher. The religious leaders condemned the teacher, twisting his words, distorting his teachings. Simon felt a surge of anger rising within him. He wanted to shout, to defend the teacher, but he held back. Dead, he observed, he listened, trying to understand. Suddenly, the teacher spoke, his voice echoing with power and conviction. "My kingdom is not of this world," he declared. "If my kingdom were of this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being crucified." These words struck a chord deep within Simon. He realized the magnitude of the choice he had to make. After the trial, Simon saw the soldiers leading the teacher out of the city. He knew where they were going, for he had heard the rumors. He followed from a distance, his heart heavy. When he reached the hill of Golgotha, he saw the crucifixion, the pain etched on the teacher's face. In that moment, Simon's resolve broke. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He cried out, not for himself, but for the suffering he had inflicted upon others in the name of freedom. He remembered the words of the teacher, "Love your enemies," and he realized the depth of those words. Love those who hate you. Forgive those who have wronged you. Seek peace, not just freedom. As Simon wrestled with his emotions, he saw something that stopped him in his tracks. The mother of the thief, crucified beside the teacher, approached them. She carried food and water, tending to both the crucified men. Simon watched in awe. This woman wasn't cursing the Roman soldiers. She wasn't consumed with vengeance. She was focused on her son. In that moment, Simon understood what it meant to be truly free. It wasn't about the absence of chains or the overthrow of oppressive rulers. It was about the freedom of the heart, the liberation of the soul. It was about choosing love over hate, forgiveness over vengeance, peace over conflict. With newfound clarity, Simon wiped his tears, his eyes fixed on the crucified figure before him. He knew in that moment that his journey wasn't over. The teacher may be gone, but his teachings, his example, his love, these would continue to guide him. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Simon traveled far and wide, carrying the message of hope, the promise of freedom, not of the sword, but of the spirit. He stood in the ancient marketplace, his voice ringing with conviction. "Why do you live in fear?" he asked the crowd, his eyes blazing with fervor. "Why do you let the chains of oppression hold you?" The people looked up, their faces etched with years of suffering. Simon continued, "The kingdom of God is within you. It is in your hearts. It is time to break the chains of fear, to cast off the shackles of hate. It is time to rise and claim your freedom." As he spoke, the people stirred, their spirits lifting. They had heard many calls for freedom, but Simon's was different. It was born out of pain, tempered by sacrifice, and fueled by an unwavering belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. Simon looked out over the vast expanse of the desert hills. The sun rising over the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched towards the new day. In the distance, a small village huddled amidst the sand dunes, its thatched huts whispering stories of resilience. This was the new land, the land that Simon had reached after months of arduous travel. He had walked through scorching deserts, climbed treacherous mountains, and traversed dense forests, all to spread the message of hope, to kindle the flame of freedom in the hearts of those who had known only despair. And as he stood there, watching the sun paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, he knew that his journey was far from over. There were more villages to reach, more hearts to touch, more souls to set free. He was no longer just Simon the Zealot, the revolutionary, the warrior of freedom. He was Simon, the herald of a new dawn, the harbinger of peace. He was one of the 12 disciples. He was the one whom Jesus loved most, and Jesus trusted him to hold his bag of money.
Ow.
But over time, that bag has become heavy. And as the man counted his coins, the teacher's words echoed in his ears. "Whoever wants to be great among you will be your servant. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." As he listened to those words, he couldn't help but feel like they were directed towards him, questioning whether his actions were truly serving the greater good. In the bustling streets of ancient Judea, amidst the cacophony of vendors and the murmur of everyday life, there existed a small group of devoted followers of a wandering teacher who spoke of love, forgiveness, and the kingdom of God. Among them was Simon Peter, a man known for his quick temper and impulsive nature. Yet in the quiet moments when the weight of their mission pressed heavily upon him, he found solace in the gentle wisdom of Jesus, the wandering teacher. One day, Jesus called his 12 closest followers to him and entrusted each of them with a task. To some he gave bags of silver, telling them to use the money for whatever they needed. He also told them that they would soon be on their way to Jerusalem. Then he turned to Peter and handed him a money bag, saying, "Keep this bag of silver. It's important that we are prepared." Peter nodded, took the bag, and tucked it under his cloak. At that moment, he felt a sense of responsibility and trust that warmed his heart. He knew that Jesus trusted him, and that was enough. However, as the days passed and the group journeyed through the dusty roads of Judea, Peter started feeling uneasy. The weight of the money bag grew heavier and heavier, not because of the coins, but because of the burden of Jesus' trust. He began to question himself. Was he worthy of such trust? Would he be able to fulfill the mission Jesus had given him? Doubts crept into his mind like weeds in a garden, threatening to choke the seeds of his faith. Meanwhile, Jesus continued teaching the people who followed him. His message was simple: love your enemies, turn the other cheek if someone slaps you, go the extra mile, love one another. Blessed are the merciful, blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. But not everyone understood or accepted his teachings. In fact, many of the religious leaders and city elders hated him. They saw him as a threat to their power and influence and wanted him out of Jerusalem. So they sent their agents to spy on him, trying to find any reason to accuse him and get rid of him. And here's the thing. One of these agents was Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples. The same Judas who always sat beside Jesus during their meals and listened intently to his teachings. But there was more to Judas than met the eye. He had a secret pact with the city leaders. A pact made in the shadows, far from the earshot of the innocent and unsuspecting followers. Judas had agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, a price so heavy it threatened to crush the very soul of humanity. Peter didn't know any of this, of course. He only knew that the weight of the money bag both fascinated and frightened him. It seemed like a test, an assessment of his loyalty and commitment to Jesus. He had no idea that he was carrying the very instrument of his master's betrayal. Every time he heard Jesus speak about love and forgiveness, he felt a pang of guilt. How could he, Peter, who had known the teacher for so long, carry the symbol of betrayal so close to him? As the days went by, he started sneaking away at night to secretly meet with the city leaders. He would leave the group's lodging in the dead of night, walk through the deserted streets of the cities they visited, and meet with the men in a secret place. There he would receive orders and instructions on how to keep tabs on Jesus, what to report back to the city leaders, and how to ensure that Jesus' mission failed. Peter never told anyone about these meetings, kept them hidden, ashamed and afraid that his fellow followers would learn the truth about him. But the more he participated in the plot against Jesus, the more his conscience tormented him. He could still hear the echoes of the teacher's words ringing in his ears. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. He knew that Jesus was right. He carried the light within him, but he was allowing darkness to consume him. Then one night, while everyone was gathered for a meal, Peter excused himself and slipped out unnoticed. He walked through the dark streets, his heart heavy with guilt and purpose. He went straight to the designated meeting spot where a group of city officials awaited him. They questioned him about Jesus' activities, his teachings, his whereabouts. Peter answered their questions, feeding them information that could be used against the teacher. But as he stood there, surrounded by the men who hated Jesus, he couldn't help but think of all the good he had witnessed his master do. He thought of the miracles, the healings, the forgiveness, the love. Suddenly, Judas entered the room. He had come to collect the payment for his betrayal. When the city leaders saw him, they greeted him warmly, praising him for his loyalty and service. Judas smiled, his eyes gleaming with greed, and accepted the money bag without a shred of shame. Peter watched this exchange from afar, hidden in the shadows. And when Judas left with the money bag, Peter realized how far he had fallen. This was the man, his own disciple, who had betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Shame washed over him, hot and heavy, and he knew he had to get away before anyone noticed he was there. So he slipped away, melting into the darkness, away from the city, away from the people, away from everything he had ever known. He wandered alone through the silent streets, the weight of his sin pressing down on him like a physical burden. Suddenly, he stopped under a lonely tree. It was dawn, and the first rays of sunlight were beginning to peek over the horizon. That's when Peter dropped the money bag onto the ground with a dull thud. The coins scattered across the ground, glinting mockingly in the pale light. Peter looked at them, his heart breaking. These were the very coins that would be used to pay for his master's betrayal. He had been a part of this, a collaborator in the death of the one person who had shown him the true meaning of life. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Peter turned and walked away. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he couldn't stay there. He couldn't bear the sight of the coins, the symbol of his fallen nature. He had betrayed Jesus, the one who had loved him, the one who had taught him, the one who had trusted him. And now the weight of that betrayal would forever be his burden to carry. Peter walked on, his head down, his shoulders slumped. He had lost everything, his faith, his purpose, his hope. And all that remained was the heavy, aching knowledge of his sin. The camera pans up slowly from the coins lying on the ground to the face of a lone man walking away into the light. The light fades to white, symbolizing the loss of hope and the death of faith. Do you ever feel like you're carrying the weight of your mistakes? Know that you're not alone. Even Peter, one of the closest disciples of Jesus, struggled with guilt and the consequences of his actions. His story reminds us that we're all human and prone to making mistakes. But it also shows us that no matter how heavy our burdens may seem, we can always seek forgiveness and try to make things right. Thank you for watching this video. May Peter's story serve as a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we can choose to move forward with hope and resilience. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with others. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more cinematic stories.